the king of Travancore. The king here, he defeated the Dutch.
Okay.
And that was how their influence declined here. So then the English came and
Okay.
there.
Okay. In fact, Shrestha has also joined us. Shrestha, Ganga was sharing something about the Dutch influence in Malabar, and she was telling about how the Malayali or the Malayalam alphabet was first published by the Dutch.
Actually, I'm aware of that.
Okay, you are aware of that. Okay,
Yeah,
you joined late, so I was just making you aware. In fact, Shrestha was sharing a very interesting write-up in Youth Ki Awaaz about in terms of migration and gender, how the internal migration from Bihar affects women. So maybe Shrestha, you can share it with the other people. Again, as I said, India becomes a wonderful tapestry of if we have to study migration and diaspora across the world, India is a great place to study with the kind of length and breadth of the country, the bigness of the country, and the population and the diversity. So it becomes a very interesting microcosm of the whole world. So and so today, last time we did the Dutch diaspora. In fact, in the European diaspora that we did, we kind of looked at the fact that never remittance was a word that was mentioned in any of those European diasporas that we did. Today we are coming to the second last diaspora that we study, that is the Italian diaspora. We also studied, for example, in the Dutch diaspora, that the Dutch government and the Dutch administration is absolutely indifferent to the diaspora, and there are no specific packages or anything. It's more like case-to-case basis. Italian diaspora and Italian government engagement with the diaspora is totally different. In fact, they are on two extremes. So let's look at the...
About one interruption.
Please.
In fact, some of the interesting study of Dutch and Portugal and Poland, our students are doing. Those who have colonies in India, Rohit is here, so Rohit Power.
Okay.
He's here right now also. He's doing a very interesting study on Poland, people in Kolhapur.
Okay.
And how they are, having...
Yes.
Rohit, can you explain further and we can...
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Sir Chawla, sir. This is Rohit here.
Tell me, Rohit.
In fact, my core subject is about this study of the Polish refugee camps during the Second World War. They were here in Kolhapur.
Okay.
And they have been given asylum by this, it was the princely state, Kolhapur state.
Okay.
So they had been stayed. It is the largest Polish camp in India. Nearly 5,000 given asylum here, and it was a mini Poland like. And those are displaced people from Poland via Russia. They came into India, and all the amenities were here. So in fact, I had welcome sir also in Kolhapur, and he is also guiding me in this aspect, and the study is going on.
So Rohit, how did they land up at Kolhapur?
In fact, when the German attacked Poland, then these children and old age people, orphans, they were taken to Russia by the Tsar, and from Russia they were in search of some country to adapt them, to give them asylum, and so they again got displaced from Russia. Then the British was there in India, ruling India. So they requested, the Russians requested, the Polish government also in exile requested someone should come forward and India were comprised of many princely states, and some of the states should adopt them. and that was questioned before the British government. So British government allowed these people, but it was initially the Jamnagar, or you can say Jam Sahib of Jamnagar,
Hmm.
to invite them and give the asylum to 500 Polish people.
Hmm.
So a good Raja, he's been referred to as, and the monument is also there in Poland. His name. Then the 500, the place of Jamnagar was quite clustered, and that was not sufficient for the more and more Polish people coming into India. And then they decided, they requested the Indian government, like British government, in fact, at that time, that somebody should take the initiative, some state should take the initiative. So the Kolhapur state, that was ideal place, like the European climate here, not too hot, not too cold, extreme, not too extreme climate. And that was correctly suitable for these European people.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
they came.
Okay.
Maybe Rohit will have a special session for you. My point of requesting you is, since Ganga also mentioned about dots and all things, I thought so many interesting things our students are doing. You can, share this.
What, sir? Please, pardon?
No, I'm saying your study on this Poland is very, very interesting. I thought
studies going on like Polish diaspora memory. So
I think
every year they came here with that.
Sadanand, I think you can organize a session in which he can share his research.
Yeah, sure.
So because you are discussing
about already current top
Dutch diaspora, I thought so many.
So this is a lot of things to discuss, but so sorry to interrupt.
Okay, Rohit, I think your network.
We are working on.
One day we'll have a discussion on your topic. Maybe others also can share.
Yes, sir.
Okay, bye.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Sure, sir. Pleasure. Yeah, please, sir. Continue.
Okay. So coming back, what we are doing today is the Italian diaspora. And again, for some people, I see some new people. The protocol is very simple. At any moment of time, you can stop me to ask a question. If anybody has anything to add, even laterally, please stop and share. There are no, particular processes of sharing of knowledge. And inevitably, we always, if you have seen, as we are looking at diaspora, we are starting with the historical context. And more often than not, the history makes the thing much more interesting to understand and to be able to, contextualize what is there today. Italy has a very interesting history. In fact, Italy was the birthplace and the center of ancient Roman civilization. 753 BC and became a republic in 509 BC. It's an old civilization. The Roman Republic unified Italy, forming a confederation of Italic people, which rose to dominate Western Europe, Northern Africa, and Near East. So this is the ancient history of Italy. But as we travel further, in 476 AD, Rome fell and Italy was fragmented into numerous city-states. Now, you can also relate a lot of times to, typically the Indian subcontinent or India, comprising of states, of princely states, etc., until the complete unification of the country in 1871. Actually, this unification of Italy started in 1861 and was completed in 1871. While this was being done, there were two maritime republics, particularly Venice and Genoa, who rose to prosperity. In fact, I have a map. I was able to pick up a map which showed the trade routes. Central Italy remained under the Papal States, while the southern Italy remains largely feudal. And there were multiple empires which were working there: the Byzantine, the Norman, Spanish, the Ottoman. All these areas, especially around the Mediterranean, was, there were multiple empires at multiple period of time. Again, I repeat, the story of human history is a story of movement, of migration, of disruptions, of war. And yet we see today more and more, in fact, the Dutch elections has put a far-right prime minister in place. In fact, last time we did the Dutch diaspora, there's a far-right prime minister who has been elected, who is wanting to come down heavily on immigration. So strangely, in spite of the fact that most countries have a lot of immigration movement, there's a lot of politics which is happening today, which is trying to stop immigration. So let's see how who succeeds, what happens. So these are the trade routes of Genoa and Venice. How these people moved during the Middle Ages. In fact, one of the famous person who moved from Italy was Christopher Columbus. The new kingdom of Italy quickly modernized, built a colonial empire, controlling parts of Africa and controlling along the Mediterranean. At the same time, suddenly it remained rural and poor, originating the Italian diaspora. So inevitably, in spite of those some sort of a normative understanding of Europe being and the West being developed and rich and so and so, we have seen, as we have seen the European diaspora, that there are ethnic divisions, there are all kinds of, there is poverty, people move. Italian explorers and navigators from the dominant maritime republics eager to find an alternative route to the Indies. So Asia or the East India was the place where a lot of these people wanted to come. In fact, when Christopher Columbus set sail and he reached America, he thought he had reached India. India was supposed to be a place to be. The most notable, Christopher Columbus credited with discovering the New World. It was Amerigo Vespucci who first demonstrated in 1501 that the New World was not Asia, and actually America is named after him. There were a lot of other explorers from Italy. That's a little bit about their history, ancient history and middle history. In fact, Italy has a central geographical locations, home to ethnic groups of German, French, Slovene, Italians, North and Albanian Italians, Greek Italians. And as we spoke earlier, the unification happened in 1871. It started in 61 and happened in 71. In fact, historian Zeffiro had contended that the Kingdom of Italy was a state without a nation because of the localist. Something similar what we can relate to in terms of India. The nationhood of India came post-partition. The subcontinent of India was much more. So people who have migrated out of India before 47, do they become a diaspora of Bangladesh, Pakistan, or of India? Because there was this unified subcontinent. So if you see again, there is a lot of overlap we are able to relate when we look at various diasporas. Gabriel Schaeffer's distinction between stateless and state-linked diasporas can be aptly summed by the experience of Italians. So that's one of the perspectives that, there was, before the unification, these were stateless, and then subsequently the unification happened. And then there is a state-linked diaspora. We have also talked in the early units about how citizenship brings in a belonging, but then we also have the example of states like the Kurds or the Palestinians who are stateless in a way. There was a diaspora without a state of origin before 61, became a diaspora with a state of origin following the 61 birth of the Kingdom of Italy. As I said, 61, the unification started and ended in 71. Except for the fascist era, the Italian authorities have always demonstrated an interest in the phenomenon of emigration. Now, this is kind of different from the other European states. In fact, this was very similar to what we saw in the West Asian context. Government has at times given subsidized travel expenses, ensured repatriation, banned immigration to certain countries during pestilences. So Italian government has been marked different from the other European countries that we have studied till now, namely Britain, France, the Dutch, the German.
Sir,
Yeah. Yeah.
is there a role of the church in this also?
Yes. Yes. The church and in fact, if you see, religion has a role, had a role everywhere, especially Europe. The church was very strong. We'll see as we come along how the church came about. We saw that during the German thing also, German diaspora, about how the Christian church and the Protestant church each had their way in engaging with the diaspora. Italy was also the first country in the world to promote bilateral agreements as early as 1900s, aimed at guaranteeing acceptable living and working standards for immigrants working abroad. That's Caldrini in 2014. So if we were to look at the diaspora and how they moved about, or migration and how they moved about, three major waves of Italian immigration can be identified. First wave 61 with unification, and ended with 20 with the rise of Italian fascism. Incidentally, Italian fascism also rose because Italians also felt they got a raw deal. After World War I, they got a raw deal, and that's where Mussolini and fascism came about. What we saw in Germany too. Factor was related to the overpopulation of Italy as a result of improvement in socio-economic condition after unification. In fact, there was a marked difference between North Italy and Southern Italy. Southern Italy was much more feudal, much more poor, and which led to the first wave of emigration which happened. This created a demographic boom and forced new generations to emigrate en masse in late 19th and 20th century to Americas. In fact, I picked up this piece from the Library of Congress, where they talk about immigration and relocation in US history, about Italians. And if you notice, it says in the first line, first steps of the US soil had become a legend. Ellis Island in 1880, their number was 3 lakh. In 1819, 6 lakhs. By 1920, it was about 4 million Italians had come to the United States. In fact, there are a lot of movies about the Italian mafia in America and so on and so forth, Godfather being one of them. So I picked this up from the Library of Congress. A second wave began after the end of World War II and ended approximately 1970. Beginning of transition of Italy from a country of emigration to one of immigration. In fact, parallelly, these processes were happening. Now, in fact, if you remember in the earlier units, we had talked about how Europeans were moving into South Europe for retirement. A lot of Europeans from Britain, Germany were moving into South Europe, and South Europe is Italy. And in fact, there was a whole lot of immigration coming in from North Africa. A third wave, still ongoing, started in 2007 when immigration flow started to grow again, particularly among young people. In addition to international migration, Italy also experienced large-scale internal migration, which is there with most of the countries, between regions with significant cultural, economic, social, and political impact. As we are seeing this impact in India, this internal migration. In fact, that article which Shrestha shared, large migration is happening out of Bihar, out of Jharkhand, Eastern UP, and Uttarakhand because of unemployment and aspirations. Remember, the youngsters always work with aspirations. The third wave primarily affected young people, widely called fuga. I don't know what is the Italian pronunciation, but it's called the brain drain, what we talked about in India, in the Italian media, though occurring due to socioeconomic problems caused by financial crisis. So you see, again, when we go through multiple diasporas across the world, different continents, a lot of similarities come across. Gabesia estimated that since 1800, over 27 million people have left Italy and more than half have returned home. Forming a nation without Italy actually counts many diasporas. It's not a single Italian diaspora, but many diasporas, as migrants have in fact maintained strong ties with their families and regional cultures. In 2000, Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs estimated between 60 and 70 million of Italian origins were residing abroad. So that's the status. Nobody exactly knows. So let's look at a little bit on the infrastructure and key engagement policies. And as I started by saying, Italy has a fairly heavy engagement and a lot of infrastructure built for diasporas. Italy has built a composite diaspora infrastructure to deal with this population. Entails the number of services are provided, but also advanced form of consultation. In fact, in the Italian diasporas, remittance as a word came across very strongly. In the other European diasporas, we never looked at the word. That word remittance never came across what we saw in the Asian and African diaspora. But in the Italian diaspora, the remittances came across because the connections back home were very strong. The main pillars of infrastructure are as follows: a network of consular, cultural, and educational institutions, system of local consultative bodies. In fact, it's got a very elaborate infrastructure, a network of regional immigration councils, specific parliamentary representations of Italian abroad, specific government authority for Italians abroad, unique transnational network of welfare centers called the patronati. This is a very unique thing in Italy, which is not there anywhere. Patronati, advice centers. Let's look at some of them. So the consular office protects interests of Italians abroad, provide them with services, assistance, for example, in case of death, accident, serious illness. In fact, exceptional assistance and subsidies in case of documented poverty in the form of food package and one of cash aid or repatriation is done, which is again, not heard in any other context. Issues emergency travel documents, notification abroad of judicial documents, driving license, and then they operate the consular. The consulars operate a registry of Italians residing abroad called the EIRE. These are the consular office. Consular repatriation only concerns Italian citizens who are experiencing issue that cannot be resolved locally. Actual consulates, there are mobile consular services and a network of honorary consulates. And honorary consulates deal with orienting citizens and forwarding their request to the general. So it's a pretty elaborate, consular service which is offered by the Italian government. In terms of education, in liaison with consulate network, 83 Italian cultural institutes promote diffusion of Italian culture and language. It is their mission to organize cultural and artistic events, manage libraries, establish contacts between Italian and foreign cultures. So this is in liaison with the consulate network. Engagement policies, consultations, and representations. So since 1980s, a widespread system of consultation and representations of Italians abroad. Two geographical levels, local levels, there is this committees. And these committees are established by Italians abroad. They cooperate with the consular authority. So each place where Italian diaspora is present, they have these committees. Tasked to identify social, cultural, and civil needs of the community, promote initiatives. Now, Also, we need to understand, based on the different waves of diaspora, different regions. I was reading about how the interest in diaspora engagement over generations has changed. So today, for example, the young diaspora does not engage so much as the older diasporas do. It's also possibly because of connections back home. It's something what we see in India. When internal migration happens, when there is a second or a third generation person who's been born in, let's say, Delhi or Bombay, and there is no roots back in their place of origin, more often than not, these children tend to incorporate the metropolis culture. Similarly, is the state with migrants and diasporas across the world. It expresses a mandatory opinion on state funding. The committees granted to media and to institutions of association. It can be made out of 12 to 18 members. More than 100 committees have been established all over the world, but primarily in Europe and Americas, where there's a large Italian diaspora. So at the local level, there are these committees. And then there is the General Council of Italians Abroad, CGIE, established 1889. Platform at global level, advises government and regions on matter of major interest of Italians abroad, living conditions. Since 1998, CGI's opinion has been mandatory for each of the government and regions concerning Italians abroad. That way, they are engaging. So in spite of the fact that interest might have waned, the local connections might not be there, yet the government enables or ensures that there is connectivity to the diasporas. Then there are these regional emigration councils. Even though immigration and emigration are essentially responsibility of central government, regional institutes promote and finance initiatives primarily aimed at preserving and centering social and cultural relations. So there is a sense of process of decentralization and regionalization. That way, all regions get covered. Of the Italian state that took place from the 70s through the 90s, 21 regions created their own regional emigration councils. So that way, there is a certain decentralization of engagement, because inevitably from different regions, people have migrated and have gone as the Italian diaspora. Then, in terms of political representation, a central and recent feature of Italian system of representation since 2001, Italians abroad have a right to vote and stand for Italian elections without the need to return to Italy. Now, that is slightly different. For example, in the German, we saw for the provincial elections, for example, they had to certify and come back. No, it was for the Dutch that they had to come back. All Italian citizens over 18 years who are registered with the Registry of Italians Abroad can vote by post and stand as candidates. The right was first used in 2006 general elections and allowed Italian voters residing abroad to elect 6 senators and 12 deputies. And this is we are seeing with various parliaments. French parliament, we saw the Germans doing that. Virtually all political parties have organizational presence abroad. Reproduces the same internal structures they have in Italy: clubs, committees, federations, officially existing. There are also specific political parties for Italians abroad, mainly in South America. So there's a large Italian presence in South America. So Battiston and Luconi note that there is a strong divergence of interest and therefore of political orientation before various generations of Italian, which is natural. Consequently, between historical destination countries and those which there was a renewal of Italian presence, which is natural because the subsequent generations, it based on the linkages, based on what is left in terms of understanding, assimilation of cultures, and so on and so forth, things change. Then there is a ministerial support. Ministry of Foreign Affairs includes 8 directorates generals, one of which is the Director General for Italian citizen abroad and migration policies. Coordinates the policies related to right of Italians, include protection and assistance, social linguistic, education promotion, relation with committees and CGI, funding to association. So it's fairly elaborate in terms of the diaspora engagement. Now, this is the Patronati is a unique innovation. It's what is called the Italian Welfare Advice Centers, created after World War II to facilitate access to individual rights in the field of social protection, relief for Italian immigrants who disembarked from ships in Argentina and Brazil. It started off from there and then it spread. Patronati, as we know them today, were created in 1945 at the initiative of General Italian Trade Union Conference and the Christian Association of Italian Workers. Shrestha, so the religion plays an important part. Oh, hi Shrestha. Finally saw you. Good to see you. Your mic is off.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Your mic was off.
I was going to ask you that maybe I can ask it at the end of it.
No, you
Yeah.
can ask me now that we have stopped.
Okay. Was there like the shift in the policies of the what post Second World War? Was there like a general shift in the policies of the Italian government to kind of encourage emigration or something, or was it like a much later development, as I think the economic development happens and so on?
No, Shrestha, in fact, if you would have, I think you missed that out. When the unification happened in 1871, at that time itself, only the Italian government was encouraging emigration. Because for a simple reason, the unification led to better socioeconomic conditions. There was a population boom, and the government was encouraging. So Italy as a nation itself, over a period of time, see, it's something like this. What Rohit talked about, the Polish coming to India historically as an ancient civilization, as an ancient state, always was welcoming of migrants, of immigrants, of people who were traveling. And every nation and every civilization has a DNA. So things like Vasudev Kutumbakum, or all those things that are inherent in Indian DNA has been there over a great length of period. Similarly, each civilization, each nation has a particular DNA. And Italy always had this thing about, and we had talked about since unification, which is 1871, they were encouraging immigration. They had set up these centers. So, for example, this Patronati, when Italian immigrants went to Argentina and Brazil, they helped them, disembark and set them out there. And it continued subsequently as things went about. Shrestha?
Yes, sir, I got it.
So, and then, of course, religion, Christian Association of Italian Workers, religion always played a part. See, religion and politics always intertwined. Europe specifically, if you see, there was a major influence of the church in the political affairs. However, they were at one particular time, they separated the church and the political paths. But across the world, we have seen religion and politics are intertwined. There they are today still special non-profit institutes linked to trade unions or corporate association providing services in the field of social protection, immigration, widespread across Italy and abroad. And the interesting part is you don't need to be a member of them. Their services are free for all beneficiaries and no affiliation, in fact, is required to extend. Now, that makes it much more, easily accessible. See, the minute you start getting people to become members, there's going to be resistance or affiliations, and then those sectarian politics come about. As they are funded by a slight percentage, and in fact, they are funded by a slight percentage of compulsory social security. So inevitably, we've also looked at the fact that European countries, there's a very strong welfareism out there. And welfareism for most modern democracies become a bedrock in terms of citizenship. Because especially in India, we are having a lot of debate on welfareism. A lot of politics get played around welfareism. It becomes an interesting, point to kind of see how it works about. There are hundreds of offices in at least 40 countries to serve the needs of Italians abroad. They provide services to national and non-national citizens having a link with Italian social security, mainly in matter of pensions, former immigrants, blurring further the distinction between public and private in social countries. Patronati also provide consular service, applying for an Italian tax code, passport, ID card, and so on and so forth. So these are what in India, what is that? That citizen centers, citizen assistance centers or something we have out here. Something very similar to that, where you can go and get multiple services. Okay, Patronati, main actors operating abroad in the field of social protection, consultative bodies do not play an effective role in terms of social protection. So Patronati is the one which are there for social protection. Rest, all of them have various, functions, politics or consultation or representation. The consulates, on the other hand, have only generic functions to provide protection of Italian workers, but in terms of living conditions, work and social security, and to give information. And anytime they need help, the consulates also direct the Italians to the Patronatis, wherever they are operating. Italy is not the only country where private organizations linked to trade unions are funded to carry out functions of public interest. In fact, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, and Sweden are again where trade union manage unemployment insurance. It makes a lot of sense because, these are citizen organizations and they are able to then interact. And then the government moves out of this area. Italy is the only country in the world to have created bodies to make social protection accessible to all its citizens abroad. Services provided by Italian Patronati are free for all without any membership, covers all area of social protection. So Patronati is a unique concept for Italy and has been there for a very long time and seems to be working. So let's sum up. Italy was the birthplace and center of ancient Roman civilization. Diaspora is large-scale historical phenomena. Millions of people for at least a century and a half. About 60 million people live outside. Over last 40 years, Italy has attached great importance to representation. In fact, nowhere in the slide I did mention remittance, but there was remittance was a key word when I was researching for the Italian diaspora, how the Italians, especially the ones in Americas, used to send money back home. To manage at first, encourage emigration, Italy has historically built a composite diaspora infrastructure, instruments to consult and represent politically citizens abroad have been the core feature. Central role played by Patronati are to this day a unique institution at international level by which Italians abroad can be held free of charge to gain access to social protection in Italy and abroad. So there are some references. In fact, the first reference I picked out from, which is not a part of your course contents. The rest of it, you can pick it up from your course contents. And there are many more references giving in your course contents. So I have reached the end. Any questions? Yeah. So people who have joined late, let me just update you. Ganga was talking about Dutch influence in Malabar, and Shrestha had shared this article on migration from Bihar, and how the migration affected diaspora, affected gender, how these women who got left behind, how they had to struggle. So that happened in the first half before we started. Any questions on today's? In fact, Italy's history was, I didn't want to go further because it was, and European history, if you see, again, Europe is in a very small continent. And I always say that whenever we have to.
Yes. Yeah. So it was very nice insight on this Italian front.
Okay.
Good knowledge about this session. Nice. Thank you so much.
Okay. So Rohit, in fact, one more thing, Rohit also, for people who joined later, Rohit was talking about his research about a Polish community which had come after World War II into Kolhapur of Maharashtra, which we will ask him, which will request him to someday share with us.
Yes, sure.
In fact, any one of you who has specific insight on Rohit, can you just mute your mic, please?
Yes.
Okay. So you can coordinate with Sada sir, and we could keep sessions, because see, inevitably the interesting part of scholarly and academics is that there are multiple points of views, and these perspectives is what make things interesting. And always in academics, there is never one point of view, because anytime you make it deterministic, then obviously you are reducing the large field of knowledge into very specific discipline, which does not work. Ranjit has a specific thing. Ranjit, of course, you understand how politics works at various levels. There are multiple levels on which politics works. We are still having a situation where 7 Navy persons are in Qatar on a death row. So politics works on various levels. Yeah, Shrestha is sharing the Youth Ki Awaaz reality of migration. It's this article is in Hindi. So if somebody has a Hindi problem, then you need to translate.
So my question to you, what has the presence of the European Union after it was established? I mean, has that also kind of impacted these several European states in a way where their national cultural identity is sort of it has been whether it has been impacted in a global way, like has that kind of, what do you think? I mean, just
See, European Union was more of a political entity to take on the America, to come as a alternate power center in the world against the US. The European Union further went into the European Economic Zone. So if you look at as an entity, they have a common currency, which Britain has just come out after Brexit, where interestingly, a lot of British do not even understand why Brexit happened. There's a very interesting Netflix documentary. I forget the name, The Great Con or something. about how the Brexit happened, but that's besides the point. See, at the end of the day, remember, underlying a lot of things which work is economics and politics. So European Union ideally gives the European countries, individual European countries, to come together to give a heft on the global scale. It's not that the individual national identities have been swamped out or assimilated in the larger identity. European Union works separately. It's more like a political entity. We have a session on We have a session on Sudanese diaspora by Dr. Iman Ahmed at 7:30. So it's more of a political entity followed by a European economic zone where trading between the European countries is very simple. So, for example, today movement between the European countries is very simple. You don't need visas, etc. So think about the fact that if I have to do business and if I have to travel to my South Asian country, I cannot get a visa, or I have to get a visa and travel. So, for example, travel between India and Nepal is visa-less. It becomes so much easier for people to move about. When people move about, businesses move about, it becomes simple. So it's more of a political entity. Shrishta?
Yes, sir. And anyways, I think in Europe, I think physical travel has always been way much, I think, easier than what it is here relatively in other parts of the
It's a
world.
small country. It's a small continent, Shrishta. It's an extremely the Germans, just walked across and landed in France. So every time when we try and compare ourselves, remember, the population and the areas, there are no comparisons. There are absolutely. So, I met some El Salvador diplomats. The population of El Salvador is 6 million. Delhi has almost 3 times that population. So, our comparisons are just not there. And that is why, things which seem natural or easily doable out there, and then the diversity of religions, the diversity of languages, the diversity of cultures. If Europeans had this kind of, diversity, I don't think so. They would have been able to, do whatever we have been able to achieve. Shenzhen visa has made European travel so easier. It becomes natural because across, then it's a small place. They have a union, and especially if you're a European citizen. Shresha, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now I can hear you.
Okay. So, did you hear what I spoke earlier?
I heard you. I just couldn't hear the last, I think, few words, I think.
Oh,
Here.
no. Ranjit had mentioned about Schengen visa. I said Schengen visa is for the outsiders, but for the Europeans, you don't need any visa. You can travel across Europe. Anybody else has a question or wanting to share something? I see some new people. Deepti, I think, is new. Manabendra Kuila, I see, is new.
Yes, sir. I am there. I'm
Okay.
listening to you.
Okay. No. I saw you a new name, so I was just repeating that name. Any questions? I hope I was not too fast. Manabendra, Deepti, Sasireka, I went about in a decent speed in which you could follow. Again, as I said, for people who would want, you can send me a mail and I can forward you the PPT. That's my email ID. Most of the framework that I use for my PPT is part of your course contents. I do add a lot of this. a lot of times the course contents I feel is not explaining too well, then I pick up external sources and I put it out in the presentation. So in case you want the PPT, you can write to me. In fact, I'll share my mobile number too. I am not on WhatsApp. In case you want to connect with me, I'm on Telegram and Signal. So you can connect with me, and anything that you like to share, ask or tell.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Veera. How are you?
Yeah, fine, sir.
How's the wife and the child?
Yeah, both are good, sir.
Good. I keep asking Veera this. Veera has just become a new father, so we need to check on each other. Ha, Veera, tell me.
Yeah, this yesterday or day before yesterday, I have seen that one. This is not related to Italy. The Dutch diaspora, one right-wing party came power, right?
Yes.
Also, that candidate, PM candidate or president candidate, I don't know, but he has
Prime Minister, PM candidate.
PM, right? Okay. He told related to the dual citizenship related thing, right?
Huh.
In that case, same thing in Italy. Now the party, I think they told that is a fascist, right wing fascist party. One lady is there, right? In this context, party ideology is influencing these immigration policies in European countries most of the time. Is it correct?
So, what has happened is a very interesting thing which has happened. Again, as I said, what I've been repeating time and again, the story of human history is a story of migration and movement. And every country has, immigrants and immigrants. And if we start from the origin of modern human being, which happened in Africa, all human beings came out of Africa and moved around the world and settled at various places. And now what has happened is over a period of time, the politics, and because of immigration happening and some sort of a narrative thing getting generated that these immigrants are taking your jobs, basically the local politics is taking your job, spoiling your, your livelihood, etc., etc., etc. And then there's this pushback against the immigrants, which is happening across the world. There is a right-wing party which has come to power in Argentina. There is a new president. So these, if you see historical movements, in fact, if you are a student of history or you have any interest in the history, and in fact, history becomes a very important thing to study to figure out how we are here. History gives you a great step. So they will always be, say, for example, this Dutch prime minister is an anti-immigrant guy. Europe is going through this anti-immigration, considering the fact that a lot of Ukrainians after the war have moved into Europe. But more than the Ukrainians, there is this fear of the third world people entering Europe. Think
Even
about
from Britain, the Sudanese, I think immigrants are being told that they'll be flown back to Sudan.
No, in fact, initially Britain came out with this plan of sending immigrants to Rwanda, which has been quashed by the court out there, which was a very strange plan. But, Europeans always had this, very distorted notion, because when they colonized the global south, they very quietly came in and sat all over the global south and took it as a right. Now, when a reverse thing is happening, the local politics is coming across, which again, as I said, historically, there always has been these contra, movements in terms of migration and, stoppage of immigration, etc., etc. How this actually pan out, we'll have to see. So this Dutch prime minister, earlier also, there was this movement of stopping this dual citizenship, but the diaspora prevailed and did not allow it. Veera, the difference between rhetoric and actual movement, we'll have to see how it works out, because remember, giving media bites is something. How the policy moves and how things move is a totally different thing. There are geopolitics things in place. There are other considerations. There is economy in place, and so on and so forth. So we will see how it plans out. But this prime minister is talking about, is an anti-immigrant guy. Veera?
Yes, sir. Why I'm telling, the same scenario come to the, for example, North American countries, Canada or US. They didn't bother any party, whether it is Labour or Conservative Party, whatever parties came in power. They told they are more or less their policies did not change. Maybe their voice is rising, but both parties. But in Europe, one phenomena is there in international relations, whether my observation correct or not. If next election, Emmanuel Macron will lose in the party lose in the next elections, they many people told France also trying to out
Stop
from the European
immigration.
Union. Trying to out from the European Union, like Brexit.
Okay.
So finally, what I understood, based on their party, based on their type of party or the characteristics of the party, is influencing the Europeans' entire migration policies. I am thinking whether it is correct or not. I don't.
See, obviously, there is a blowback against immigration across the Western world, the global north, and specifically because of the fact that there is a lot of global south people who are moving to global north. And this is what is unnerving them. Remember, Veera, it is still, there is this thing between the white and the non-white. There is the thing between one particular religion and another particular religion. So remember those basic, things which have been there right from the 11th century still hold true. Internet has changed the way human beings connect, but the human psychology by far has not evolved too much. Veera?
Yes.
So we need to understand that beyond the technology and the glitz, there is a human with a very animal psychology. Otherwise, how do you explain that after 2 world wars, which led millions of people to die, we are still fighting? And there are multiple active wars still happening. India can learn how we can engage with diaspora. Ranjit, you're right. Again, as I said, we cannot make active comparisons with European countries because our numbers are huge. Our diversity is again very huge. We need to set up our own. See, again, no particular good practices across the world may or may not work with India. We need to indigenize, things for our own self. Because today the Indian diaspora is, right from the slave trade to the indentured laborers to people who had moved before India got independent, before the state of Pakistan, Bangladesh came in. In fact, South Asia has a unique advantage which somehow is not working out. So it's not very easy, Ranjit, if as I understand it. Veera, I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question? So,
hi.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Pragya.
Yeah. So it's just an observation that I thought I'd share, and
Please.
So the thing is, when we are talking about the EU and the Italians in particular, the EU, of course, they support immigration and asylum and refugees and all. On the other hand, when we talk about the Dublin system, that is where the person of the refugee, where he lands first, that country has to take that person. So the Italians, especially in the south, Sicily and all of that area, they are being flooded by all of this. There is a lot of influx of people coming through the sea. So I was just thinking about, like, what is the role of these transnational organizations like the EU? Because yeah, it happens to be very, very strong and influential. So is it like more about just sending in money and then let them do whatever they want? Because then there also, there'll be upcoming diasporas of refugees or of asylum seekers. I mean, yeah, it's just like a wild thought, but then yes, it is important considering what we are talking about, because time and again, because I am an international lawyer, so
okay,
yeah, I deal with all of it. So it is very interesting to place asylum, refugee, diaspora, migration, and then transnational organizations like the EU.
So I'm no. I think by far, I will have to go and look at what exactly is EU. EU is, as I said, a political organization looking at creating a political heft vis-a-vis US. That was initially the case in terms of then a euro vis-a-vis the dollar. See, again, internationally, when you look at it, how you create heft in the global system order of system. So that's how the EU came about. Now, EU typically has a role in terms of the larger, and again, EU is comprised of all these European countries who then send their representatives, and the EU Parliament then discusses what are the various things that they need to look at. So, for example, all these guys look at asylum as a valid thing. EU nations require a cheap manpower to take care of so they are dependent on global south. So that definitely has been the case. So Ranjit is writing this in the chat that EU requires cheap manpower. That always was the case. And it's not just EU, across the world, this cheap manpower. So Americas use China as a manufacturing hub because Chinese give them cheap manpower. Today, if you look at the fact that artificial intelligence is run on cheap manpower of the third world, what we are doing when we are using social media is we are providing cheap manpower to these social media companies which make their earning. We are providing the content. So always there is this supply and demand, and a capitalist order works that way. However, when European Union or European countries as welfare countries or as those moral liberal states originated, they talked about asylum, they talked about human rights. Listen, if they don't do it, their whole edifice of that thing that they have made will collapse. And that's what is happening. For example, today there is this question which is being raised that when Russia is attacking Ukraine, or when Israel is attacking Palestine, there is this disparity of opinion which is coming out from the West. So, and then I think Europe has, as you rightly put it, Devpragya, that once whichever country the immigrants come in, they have to process the case based on asylum seekers, whether how many they can take. They have given targets in terms of these many asylum seekers. But then there is this illegal asylum seekers who are also coming in, or illegal immigrants who are not coming in, which is providing this political turmoil in Europe and Americas.
Yes, sir. And I would just like to say that I was working with the European Parliament in the Human Rights Unit.
Okay.
So that's why I came up with this thing. But then these are like double standards. On one side, you would want people from Global South, and also the leather industry. How can we forget about that? And the COVID that happened in Italy, especially the southern part. And then when we talk about people coming from the sea and all of that, then they are not welcomed. So, I mean, yeah, we need to really weigh out what we are doing, because it's more about, the global north and the global south. But when we talk about migration and asylum, we cannot just differentiate, okay, what we like is what we keep. Yeah, if I am able to put it across.
No, you're right. I get your point. See, obviously, Pragya, again, historically, if you've seen the story of civilizations and the story of nation states, there is a sort of a double standard in a lot of places. Again, as I said, America is a nation of immigrants, and they are trying to stop immigration. So there is all these disparities at work, and yet those negotiations need to work out, and that is why those rhetorics and media bites does not work, but real polity comes in. And that's where possibly the South is still not getting that heft, because the South still look at the fact that two bigger countries in Asia, India and China, are not negotiating and moving together. So, so obviously, if you look at the fact that the global North is able to get together because of their common interests, we have a common interest, but somehow we. But I guess that's historically that's always been there.
And it is also like I mean, I'm taking too long. I'm very sorry.
No, don't be.
It just a lot of observations that come into play, because when we talk about the Northern Europe and the Southern Europe, so again in the EU, so they are happy to fill the boxes with money and send through, but not keep the illegal migrants.
Yeah, of course, there is this distinction between Eastern Europe and Western Europe too.
And when I went to Italy, and it was very strange for me, because people there are very different from the people in the Northern Europe.
Okay.
When in terms of when we are talking about immigration and migrants, and you see that reaction, and you're like, okay, yeah, we know it's all about money. Everything plays on money.
Obviously, political economy is a very important part. So if you're able to understand the political economy, then you can understand how the politics play out. So at the end of the day, remember, we are, the world still works on a capitalist model. Absolutely. Why do you think wars are the most popular, destinations? Because there is an economy which works. There are companies which benefits out of war. So as I keep saying, that's where scholarship and academics becomes important, because then you are able to step back and look at all these things. You're able to understand and decipher things.
Yes. And according to the international law, no person should be stateless. That is what we are read, and that is what I have been taught.
Exactly, because
the actual situation, it is very different.
And how can a person be illegal? A person may not have the documents. No person is illegal. So you're right. When you look at it from the law point of view, it's a different thing. But here right now, as a part of migration and diaspora studies, we are looking at a much more plain vanilla kind of things. And that's where all these perspectives enrich our understanding of the whole issue. Depragya?
Yes. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome. Okay. So let's call it a day. It was interesting. In fact, this Depragya thing about, how does the law see it? How does migrations happen? Historically, also, we get a sense of how things work, how the nation's DNA work, how real politics are coming about, what is the political economy which works. So we'll stop here. Next time, we will look at the final European diaspora, the Portuguese and the Spanish diaspora. And then we subsequently move away from case studies into a new block. You guys have a nice weekend. And evening, there is a class. Please remember to attend at 7:30 on the Sudanese diaspora. And Sudan is also going through this crazy thing about North Sudan, South Sudan. And then there is still strife going on in Sudan. So it might be interesting to listen to that. And I'll see you next Saturday, 3 o'clock, same time.
Yes, Abhay, thank you so much. I also request some student who can introduce Dr. Iman. We'll make it more participatory whenever we invite someone.
Somebody wants to, volunteer to introduce? quickly, you can raise your hand or tell. Shrestha?
Okay, sir, I'll do that.
Shrestha will do it.
So you have the profile already I shared with the WhatsApp group. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Shrestha, you've got the profile now?
Yeah, sir. I think it must be on the group.
Okay.
Yes. No,
Okay.
personally, I feel all of you should get direct link with the resource person, and it will build your academic thing also. So, okay, Shrestha, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys, have a nice weekend. See you next Saturday. Bye-bye.